him.
I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Smack-a-ma-gob, it's time for the only news that matters. And Exodus guitarist Gary Holt recalled how thrash metal musicians back in the 80s felt about glam metal, revealing that some had to enjoy this genre in secrecy. It's no secret that Exodus is one of the most influential bands in thrash metal music, helping push the genre toward the more extreme end over the years. Gary Holt has always been a crucial component to their sonic equation, and his guitar work was groundbreaking for the era. He was asked, looking back at the early thrash metal scene, was there any competition between those bands? And he said, oh, absolutely. I mean, the competition was one-sided because in the Bay Area, we were afraid of nobody. We were all friends and we all hung out and drank together at shows, but we all wanted to one-up each other. I mean, Exodus was always on the winning end of that competition, but nobody wanted any of this. Our crowd in the Bay Area was the most violent and most over the top of any of the bands, so we had nothing to fear. I mean, in the Paul Baloff era in Exodus, if somebody showed up with a rat shirt, we'd pull out the pocket knife and cut a strip off the shirt. If you look at some of the old photos of Baloff, he got all these pieces of cloth like for 3 inches tied around his wrist. And those are threads of poser shirts. But at the time, us guitar players were secretly listening to Warren DeMartini's riffs, like the sickest, greatest guitar players on earth with the best tone ever. Him and Robin Crosby. So we were like sitting there listening to him and George Lynch. But at the same time, the segregation between the two genres, we were like mutual enemies. We needed one another. We both died out together, it seemed, at the end of the 80s. Mutual beneficial enemies, you know? Right on, yeah. I gotta tell you, man, I lived it. I lived the 80s, I lived the thrash scene. But before thrash, you know, I loved the metal too, man. And metal back then was Motley Crue, Rat, Dokken, all that early stuff that they released. I loved it, man. You know, it was of the time. You know, I loved a lot of different stuff. I loved like the most extreme stuff from Venom and Merciful Fate. I discovered those bands the same time I discovered Motley Crue and Rat. Around 83, 84 is when I was purchasing the most extreme shit, but also loving, you know, the more glammy stuff that later became even more glammy, where I kind of jumped ship there. But during like the, you know, everything up to 84, I thought they all were releasing great shit. And I wasn't part of the, you know, poser this, poser that. I mean, I didn't like, you know, Bonfoni and Poison and all that, but I didn't really go out of my way. And at the same time, I was kind of like, I'd be hypocritical because I like this other stuff they call poser shit, like Dokken, Rat, Motley Crue. And there were times, man, I mean, I had no shame. I would go to thrash shows wearing my Shout at the Devil shirt. I also wore Cheap Trick shirts at thrash shows. I didn't give a fuck. You know, I was like, I ain't gonna follow no rules. You know? And nobody ever gave me shit. I mean, I think there was one guy, you know? But then I joined a thrash band, right? Thrash or Die. And somebody found a picture and sent it to me. And it's this picture here. If you look at the right corner, That's me holding up the Shout at the Devil album. And that was when I met Motley Crue. They were doing a record signing at Peaches, and I still have that album, and it's signed by all 4 members. And that picture, I shared it on the Thrash or Die Facebook thing, and people were calling me posers. You are a poser, man. You listen to Motley Crue, and I'm like, listen, kid. Obviously, you weren't around when Shout at the Devil was new, you know? You know, back then, I was banging your grandmother. That's right, I'm old, man. You know? You all young fucks, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. By the way, tell your granny I said hi. And tell her I'm sorry I went out for that pack of cigarettes and never came back. Alright? By the way, your father's my son. So, yeah, I have no shame in what I like, man. I never did. Even in the 80s when you were... I never, ever subscribed to that. Yes, there was a lot of music I hated. But, you know, it's like... I didn't have a YouTube back then to bitch about it. Now I do. Now I'll bitch about Bon Phony and Poison when somebody sends me a track by track that, you know. Because to me, it's horrible music. After 84, a lot of those bands I loved too kind of went south, you know. For me, I liked the earlier stuff, you know, more. I thought they released solid albums, and then after that, they were patchy albums. After 84, they were patchy albums from all these bands that I loved, you know, the Rat Motley Crue and Doc. And it's my opinion. You know, I like a few songs after 84, but to me, their peak was 1984. And back then, man, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, was heavy metal to the core, you know? Yeah, it was a little more happier, but rap was kind of metal, man. I'm Insane, Lack of Communication. Tooth and Nail rips that song, total metal. You know, When Heaven Comes Down, Don't Close Your Eyes. A lot of cool metal tracks from Dokken, you know. I loved all that stuff. And yeah, secretly, Gary Holt did as well. I don't blame him, man. You know, but I loved it all. I loved that, you know, I just loved the thrash, that was happening too. It was so new and so fresh, you know. And I was into, you know, I was into a lot of different thrash. I really liked the German thrash, especially Sodom. But I loved Creator and Destruction, Tankard, you know, good stuff, man. But I love the American Bay Area stuff, you know, especially Violence. Violence and Bonded by Blood. Those are the 2 greatest things that came out of the Bay Area, and Cliff Burton, of course. I mean, for me, that is the best thrash. Then you had Possessed, you know, that was more death metal, and man, I loved all that stuff. I was more eclectic in my musical taste back then. Now, I'm not. I mean, I still love all that different type of music I loved back then, but I'm just saying about now, all I like now are these new traditional metal bands that are coming out that sound like the old 80s stuff. Like Thriller is one of the bands I really love now. And oh man, there's many. Riot City, Traveler. I'm loving all that stuff, and that's all a throwback of 80s metal. And I'm stuck on that, you know, now. Where I still listen, you know, I listen to everything from fucking ABBA to Immortal, you know, I mean, but I also have to bring up the fact that, you know, I know a lot of people, well, I listen to everything that's not, I don't only listen to metal, I listen to other stuff too. Hey, I do as well, but in my world, all the different type of music I like that's not metal takes a back seat to metal, because metal is the greatest form of music in my world. Yeah, I'll listen to Jeff Buckley, you know, I'm not bragging here. I'm saying, Jeff Buckley, Cheap Trick, the Beatles' greatest band in the world, I still think metal is the greatest form of music in my world, you know? I just can appreciate different stuff, but man, metal, and damn proud of it. I don't want to be one of these people like, I don't only listen to metal. Even though I don't only listen to metal, but I don't like saying it. And when I do say it, I say, yeah, I like all this different type of stuff that's not metal, but it all takes a back seat to it. I want to make it clear. In my world, metal is king. And that's it for the only news that matters. Leave your comments below of, hey, these Thrashers were secretly loving the glam stuff. You can't blame them, man. Listen to that riff of Lay It Down. One of the greatest riffs ever that wasn't written by Tony Iommi. Again, I want to thank you all for watching The Only News That Matters. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't and ring that little notification bell. I totally would appreciate that. And like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Black Sabbath and smack 'em a gob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.